Yeah, I think that the reason that is because me and Jason see ourselves as cousins.
Hmm.
We recognize that we have different narratives because of the experiences that we have, because of the historical narratives that we live through. But we don't see our futures as apart, and we don't see each other as enemies. And even though sometimes I may say things that Jason disagrees with, or Jason says things that I disagree with, I'm not taking that to heart as he's my enemy. I'm seeing it as this is just his way of seeing how can I maybe create a more holistic truth where I understand his truth and he understands my truth. Thank you for sharing the Rabbi Chaim Simons, which I had never heard before, because I always love to learn more and to read more. I just looked it up now, and the title of his document is a historical survey on the proposals to transfer Arabs from Palestine. And he talks a lot about how there were different individuals that proposed this, but not that this was actually something done in practice.
Yes,
Again, the thing,
the majority of Jews at the time, the majority of religious Jews at the time, when Zionism was created, were non or anti-Zionist. I mean, there's another
yes,
person, Simon Dubnow, who was a Jew that was like a non-Zionist and everything, because they knew that drawing Zionism to its logical conclusion, to build a state on a 92% on the land that had 92% Arab majority, it would have its consequences of people being displaced. And
well, to answer to that, I would say that if you had 700,000 Jews living around, sorry, 700,000 individuals living in the land at that time, some of them are Jews, a minority of them, most of them are Arabs, some of them are Christian Arabs, some of them are Druzim, Bedouin, Cherkessim, and so on. There are millions of Jews in the diaspora. So bringing millions of Jews back does not mean having to, in a theoretical, equation, mean removing Palestinians or Arabs. And I don't think that was what was going through the minds of Jews at the time. They were talking about coming back, and there were proposals and thoughts because the experience of Palestinians were the enemy, because of individuals like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and because of militant groups that were fighting each other. I fully believe, and you may disagree with me, that if we had never experienced each other as the enemy, there would have never been a displacement of either population, and we would have created a conversation around creating a civilization that works for both, which is the conversation we need to have today.
mhm.
I do want to talk about why religious Jews were against Zionism. It's not because, in my opinion, they saw that this wasn't going to be able to be done because the 92% demographic difference with the Jews. It's because the view of a lot of religious Jews is you cannot go back to Israel until you have the Mashiach, until you have the Messiah. And for them, they're not against Israel being created in the future and for the Jews to self-determine and so on. They're against it being done right now. And in my opinion, the reason they're against it being done right now is because they're so psychologically broken for so many generations that they truly believe that we cannot be empowered. And it's a very similar phenomenon that happens, with the Stockholm syndrome or with, unfortunately, women being in abusive relationships. You have women that fight back or remove themselves. You have women that make excuses for what's happening, and you have women that then blame themselves and subconsciously side with their oppressor, side with the person committing that abuse. And that subconscious siding with our oppressor exists within the Jewish community, from the far left to the far right, to the religious to the secular. And for the religious, it was this idea: we cannot be strong, we cannot empower ourselves, we cannot go back to Jerusalem, we can't do it until God does it. Until God does it, we can't do it. And the reason why so many religious Jews were anti-Zionist when Zionism was first starting to succeed is because it was being done by secular Jews. And it was a whole ego thing. Because a lot of religious orthodoxy is built fences around our culture of liberation. And if you step out of that fence, if you step out of all these laws that we've built along the way, which I understand why a lot of them exist, then you are not being your true self, and you're going to assimilate, and you're going to this and you're going to that, and you're going to be a bad Jew. So how could the leaders of the more orthodox individuals and more religious individuals tell their constituents, tell their community, that the secular Jews actually got something right? It would be directly opposed to everything that they had built, that they had right. And I think the reason for why Zionism and this form of nationalism, not nationalism in the sense of America and Britain, but nationalism in the sense of indigenous liberation, existed amongst the secular Jews, because the religious Jews did not give a space for that. And then once Israel was created, most religious Jews today have realized that this is the reality, and maybe Mashiach is not a one moment, everything that comes, it's an accomplishment of everything, but we can get into theological conversations later. For me, by the way, I don't consider any solution either one state or two state. I consider it one civilization solution. And when you say one civilization solution, you're not defining by how it's going to look like, but you are implying that it's one land, peoples living on this land, and a reality that can exist where we end the injustices and fulfill the aspirations. And that's what I think is most important in the conversation, because a two-state solution, in my opinion, is a crime and will never happen. The Jews don't see this land as territory. We see this land as our soulmates. So there's no way that we would ever give up on living in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and Jews would never be displaced. In fact, 600 to 700,000 Jews live in Judea and Samaria today, and they all have weapons. And most combat officers within the IDF are religious Zionists. And most of the country in Israel supports Jews living there. So forget about what would happen in Judea and Samaria, West Bank, if Israelis were pulled out, and the fact that this land is higher and this land is lower in terms of military, it's not efficient, and the fact that it doesn't achieve the aspirations of both populations, there'd be a civil war in Israel before the day that there'd be a two-state solution.
I'm not
So
saying
I think
I
the
don't believe
conversation.
anyone should move. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone should be removed. So we agree on that.
All right, so we agree on that, and I
Yeah.
think the conversation should be more about how do we create a reality that no one is removed, and that all have equal access to rights, to movements, to aspirations, to education, to infrastructure, to sanitation, and really build a reality where, again, Palestinians, when they live in this land, feel like this is the land that they're from, and that the army that exists here is not an army controlling them, but an army protecting them. And how do, when Israelis live here, feel that they've achieved their aspirations of thousands of years old, and that this country is enough that fulfills those needs, but also fills the needs of another population? And that's a conversation that I don't know why we still have not had as a generation.